आज तक को दिए वर्ल्ड एक्सक्लूसिव इंटरव्यू में रूसी विदेश मंत्री सर्गेई लावरोव ने सारी वजहें बताई हैं कि आखिर यूक्रेन पर हमला क्यों किया गया। यूक्रेन में निर्दोष लोगों की मौतों को उन्होंने रूस की कारस्तानी मानने से इनकार कर दिया, जबकि यूक्रेन के शहरों में रोजाना सैकड़ों की संख्या में नागरिकों की लाशें और सामूहिक कब्रों का मिलना जारी है। रूस के विदेश मंत्री ने सीधे तौर पर यूक्रेन पर ही आरोप लगाए हैं कि वो एक मानव शील्ड के तौर पर प्रयोग कर रहा है अपने ही नागरिकों का। वैसे यूएन हाई कमिश्नर फॉर ह्यूमन राइट्स के ताजा आंकड़ों के अनुसार 15 अप्रैल तक यूक्रेन में युद्ध के हालात की वजह से कम 2700 आम नागरिक मारे जा चुके हैं और 2800 से ज्यादा घायल हुए हैं। यूक्रेन में रूसी फौज के हमलों में जो लोग मारे गए हैं उसमें यूनाइटेड नेशंस के अनुसार 205 बच्चे हैं, जबकि 362 बच्चे जख्मी हुए हैं। सिर्फ आंकड़े ही नहीं बल्कि यूक्रेन की रिहायशी इलाकों में बर्बादी और सामूहिक कब्रें मिलने की खबरें भी कई सवाल खड़े करती हैं। रूस की फौज पर पूरी दुनिया यूक्रेन में जेनोसाइड और वॉर क्राइम जैसे संगीन आरोप लगा रही है। रूस के विदेश मंत्री सर्गेई लावरोव ने आज तक को दिए इंटरव्यू में इन सारे आरोपों को गलत बताया है और यूक्रेन पर रूस के हमले का बचाव किया है।
Russia is warning all its colleagues that just on our borders you have been creating a springboard against us. You have been pumping arms into Ukraine. You have been totally ignoring the legislation of Ukraine which completely prohibited the Russian language. You have been ignoring legislation which have been encouraging neo-Nazist ideology and practices, and the neo-Nazist battalions which were very much active against the territories who proclaimed themselves independent and who were promised special status. It's inside Ukraine. And they were saying that Ukraine will be in NATO. Nobody can stop Ukraine if it's so vicious. And then President Zelensky said that he might think about coming back to possess nuclear weapons. And in November last year, my president suggested to the United States and to NATO to sit down, to cool off, and to discuss how we can agree on security guarantees without further expansion of NATO eastward.
Right.
They refused, and in the process, Ukrainian army radically intensified the shelling of those republics in violation of all ceasefire agreements, and we didn't have any other choice but to recognize them, to sign mutual assistance treaties with them, and in response to their request to send our troops as part of the special operation to protect their lives. It was announced by President Putin. He said that the sole purpose of this operation is to demilitarize and denazify Ukrainians, because these are two intimately linked problems of that country, and we have been targeting only military infrastructure. Unfortunately, the Ukrainian army and so-called nationalist battalions, which are using Nazi insignia, swastika, which was borrowed from Indian history but twisted the wrong way, and the insignias of Waffen-SS battalions. These people were using and continue to use civilians as a human shield. They were placing the heavy weapons in the middle of the towns and cities, next to schools, next to kindergartens, to hospitals. And the internet is full with the testimonies of the people who were living in those places and who were asking these people not to do this. Unfortunately, nobody in the West actually pays attention to the facts which we have been providing. Instead, they are staging some fake situations, like couple of weeks ago in the place called Bucha, where the Russian troops left on the 30th of March, I think, and for 3 days the city was back in the hands of Ukrainian administration. The mayor of Bucha was publicly saying that we are back, the city is back to the normal life, and only on the 4th day they started showing images of dozens of corpses lying in the street, which was only a few days before shown as being back to normalcy. So this kind, and then a few days later in the city of Kramatorsk, which was fully in the Ukrainian hands, they summoned people to the railway station and attacked them with the missile, .U missile, and it was proven beyond any doubt that the missile was fired by the Ukrainian army. That's why next morning it was out of the news in the West, because the obvious nature of this provocation was understood by everybody. Now the New York Times says that they have the proof that
satellite images,
that the cluster bombs were used by the Ukrainian army. So speaking of civilians and the rules of international humanitarian law, I can once again assure you that our army operates against the military infrastructure and not against civilians.